Hello and welcome. I am Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching India Calling, your weekly destination for all things India and G20. A warm welcome to viewers joining us from around the world. Now, over the next 1 hour, I'll get you all the news related to India's presidency of the G20 and a flavor, a slice of Indian culture. So sit back and enjoy as I take you on a journey around this vast and beautiful country that's India. All right then, let's get started. First up, a roundup of the G20 events held this week. Now, this week, G20 meetings were held in Chandigarh, Chennai, Jodhpur, Guwahati and Bengaluru. Let me give you a flavor of two events held in Jodhpur and Chennai. Now, Jodhpur is located in the western Indian state of Rajasthan. My colleague Amritpal Singh gets you this report from the Blue City. Take a look.
Rajasthan, the land of palaces and forts, the land of the desert and lakes, a land of the rugged Aravalis. To be in the Blue City. Jodhpur, the jewel of Marwar, the strapping Mehrangarh Fort, the majestic Umayyad Bhavan Palace. Jodhpur was recently a gracious host to delegates of the G20 Employment Working Group.
The idea behind taking the G20 meetings out of the big cities like capital Delhi or financial capital Mumbai or even the IT capital Bangalore was to give the visiting G20 delegates a taste and feel of the rich culture and diversity that India has to offer. In that sense, the Blue City of Jodhpur proved to be ideal settings with its magnificent palaces, its strapping forts, or just the laid-back life and the charms of Mufassal India.
The guests were understandably overwhelmed.
If you visit it, it's really, it gives you a very magical feeling. It's wonderful. Really sure it also has to do with the people who are now like making music outside, people who were dancing when we entered. So that combination really brings the fort to life and it makes it very special for me.
It was a really welcoming atmosphere. Since the moment we arrived in Jodhpur, we experienced the Indian culture in many ways, and it has been very amazing so far. So we are very impressed with the organization so far.
Absolutely amazing. It's really magnificent. I've heard all of the sort of descriptions, and it doesn't really do it justice. It's the culture is fantastic. We had such a wonderful evening last night, seeing all the dancing and the wonderful food and the culture. It's just my first time to India, and well, it won't be my last because I've seen what it's like in Rajasthan, so I want to come back.
They were taken in by the charm of Jodhpur. Don't blame them.
So do visit Jodhpur when you can. And a millet village was set up at the venue of the G20 meeting on employment held in Jodhpur. If you're wondering why millets, well, 2023 is the International Year of Millets. India proposed it and the UN accepted it. Now, millets are a very versatile food. More than 95% of millets are produced in the developing countries. The most widely grown millets are sorghum and pearl millets. Now, millets are easy to grow. They are climate resilient and drought resistant. They are also very nutritious. Put simply, millets are good for the cultivator, climate and consumer. That's you. Now, coming back to Jodhpur, the millet village served delicious foods to the G20 delegates. I want you to savor the flavor of Jodhpur in the next report.
them one with millets as food and also to show the rural culture of Jodhpur and the Marwar region and of course of Rajasthan.
Year of millet has been announced this year, year 2023. Millet for Rajasthan and especially for the Jodhpur province, it used to be the part of life. Because of the scarcity of rains, our people used to grow millet, eat millet, consume millet, and everything is out of millet, and it is super nutritious foods. It has been considered. So Honorable Prime Minister is continuously recommending and hailing the people to consume more and more millets. Ministry of Agriculture is also promoting different varieties of millets, and in the time which are coming, and because of the impacts of the climate change which is happening, now it has become necessary to grow millets and consume more and more millets.
Glorious experience this evening, a beautiful setting, a fabulous cultural performance with singing and dancing, and now I'm learning a little bit about millet. I think millet offers a lot of promise, both in terms of nutrition and in terms of the environment. So very exciting to see the focus on millet in 2023.
I think just overwhelmed with everything that we've experienced tonight, the culture, including this. This has really just been fantastic.
This is how millets are transported traditionally from the farm, and the traditional women folk here then ground them at their homes using these grounding sticks. Once the flour is made, it's taken and it is being cooked on firewood. The roti of pearl millet or bajra is being made. The idea is to give a taste of the diverse culture of India and the distinct local culture, the rural culture of the Marwar region, to also promote millets. Here they are grounding chutney as it's done on the stone in the traditional way. So using culture and promoting the idea of millets. With cameraman YK Loknath, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Jodhpur.
All right, moving from Jodhpur in the north to Chennai in the south. An exhibition of handicrafts was put up at the venue of the G20 meeting on education in Chennai. My colleague Shyama Mishra spoke to the artisans at the exhibition. Take a listen.
Showcasing our rich cultural handicrafts over here at the G20 Education Working Group, there are stalls put up. These all materials and these are assets are there of our artisans, and they have carved, they have painted and worked hard to put up these paintings and all other materials over here. The delegates are taking keen interest in all these handicrafts that are put over here. Over here you can see live live demo, we could say, of the lamp that he is making. This is called Nachar coil lamps, and he is carving the brass and he is making it. So how do you make it, and kitna time, how much time does it take to make one lamp?
7 days.
7 days.
7 days.
So it takes 7 days to make one lamp, and likewise you can see all these huge lamps, and then small samais are also there available. These are our saris and all these materials. We also have over here all the locations of the Tamil Nadu which is to be seen or which is to be explored through tourism board. Tamil Nadu has displayed. So this is a handloom, and right now the delegates would also be taking interest in how this actually works, because this will be for saris, and then there is another handloom which makes towel. Then we also have wooden charkha. So how much time does it take to make one lot of this, and what are you actually making of this?
One saree hanker, 1.5 days charka is running.
Okay. And G20 delegates are coming and seeing this. How proud are you?
I'm happy in foreigners and my handloom working in demo.
So the artisans are happy showcasing their talent to the foreign G20 delegates. Likewise, if you see over here, these are all styles. This is Tanjavur art plate. Then there's Swami Malai bronzes, and there's wood carving as well. So all these art and skill are being showcased. So what are you making, and what's the speciality of this art?
This is Tanjore hot plate. One plate is 3 days.
So one plate like this is 3 days, and there's a lot of we could say hard work going in, and definitely they are showcasing it to the entire world through the G20 Education Working Group. With camera person S. Jaishankar, this is Shama Mishra for DD India, Chennai.
All right, from Jodhpur and Chennai now to northeastern India, where Guwahati hosted the first Sustainable Finance Working Group meeting under the G20 finance track. The meeting was spread across 5 sessions with over 100 delegates taking part in it. It made tangible progress towards achieving the goals set by the Indian presidency. The meeting also laid a broad groundwork for the remaining 3 Sustainable Finance Working Group meetings to be held in the coming months in Udaipur, Mamallapuram and Varanasi.
The 2-day first Sustainable Finance Working Group meeting concluded in Guwahati on Friday. More than 100 delegates from G20 nations, invitee nations and international organizations like World Bank, IMF and UNDP participated. The Indian presidency had identified 3 key priority areas for the delegates to deliberate on. And on all 3 issues, the Indian proposal got an overwhelming response from the delegates. The first day deliberation were focused on the first 2 issues: mechanism for mobilization of timely and adequate resources for climate finance, enabling finance for the sustainable development goals.
Delegates did agree to the need for stepping up and mobilizing timely and adequate climate finance. There was a lot of support, as I said, on the side events which will be organized, and delegates did express the need to focus on de-risking mechanisms for mobilizing sustainable finance and directing it to climate and green projects.
On the second and the last day, there were deliberations on the last topic: capacity building of the ecosystem for financing towards sustainable development. The delegates agreed to develop a technical assistance action plan to help the nation with skilled workforce in sustainable finance.
Key takeaway is essentially to develop a technical assistance action plan by taking into account all the existing capacity building efforts which are in place and assessing the skill gaps which are there in the capacity building field of sustainable finance, and then seeing how we can fill in those gaps and what are the solutions. So that is the work agenda for the Sustainable Finance Working Group.
The delegates agreed with the proposal put forth by the Indian presidency and provided valuable inputs to firm up the process. The most tangible takeaway from the 2-day meet is that Indian agenda was widely accepted and delegates were more than comfortable with giving further suggestion as mark of their support. This was the first meeting of the Sustainable Finance Working Group meet. The 3 more are being planned in coming months in Udaipur, Mahabalipuram and Varanasi. Given the progress made in the very first meet, the Indian government is very hopeful that before the leadership summit in September in Delhi, the Sustainable Finance Working Group meet will have achieved the required result. But even the press conference was not over without a reference to the exceptionally warm welcome accorded to all the delegates. The delegates specifically asked the advisors in Finance Ministry to convey their regard in the press conference.
The issues identified by the Indian presidency concern the global south, the developing world, the real challenges they face in face of climate change and their eagerness to attain sustainable development goals. 3 more meetings are in the offing, and Indian presidency is sure that when the time for summit comes, tangible progress will be made in this aspect. With camera person Sanjeev Sharma, Ravidhman, DD India, Guwahati.
The President of the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Csaba Kuroshi, called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. It was his first bilateral visit as UNGA President. PM Modi reaffirmed India's commitment to multilateralism, including at the UN. He welcomed Kuroshi's support for India's presidency of the G20. Kuroshi also met with India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant. He described G20 as an important platform for exchange of ideas and solutions. All right, time now for our next segment called Explainer. Now, World Wetlands Day was in the news this week, so here is a lowdown on it. Right, take a look at the infographic here. World Wetlands Day is celebrated every year on 2nd February. The UN adopted a resolution in August 2021 that declared 2nd February as World Wetlands Day. Now, 2nd February was chosen for a reason. It marks the anniversary of the Convention on Wetlands, which was adopted as a global treaty in 1971. It was adopted in the Iranian city of Ramsar in 71 and came into force in 1975. That's why the wetlands are also called Ramsar sites. Now, 90% of the world's wetlands have degraded since the 1700s. So we are losing wetlands 3 times faster than forests. Now, why are wetlands important? Because they contribute to biodiversity, climate mitigation and adaptation, and freshwater availability. So the day is observed to raise awareness about wetlands, reverse their rapid loss, and encourage actions to conserve and restore them. Now, wetlands have a deep connection with Indian culture and traditions. For instance, the Loktak Lake in Manipur is revered as Ima or Mother by locals. Similarly, the Kecho Palri Lake in Sikkim is popular as the wish-fulfilling lake. The Indian festival of Chhath is a unique expression of the association of people, culture, water and wetlands. The Dal Lake in Jammu and Kashmir, Khajjar Lake in Himachal Pradesh, Nainital Lake in Uttarakhand and Kodaikanal in Tamil Nadu are all popular tourist sites. Now, India has 75 Ramsar sites. It's the largest network of Ramsar sites for any country in South Asia. India added 49 Ramsar sites between 2014 and 2022. In fact, 19 of them were added in 2022 alone. And one of them is the Thane Creek in Maharashtra. Now, there are several sources of fresh water to the creek, of which Ulhas River is the largest, followed by many channels from various suburban areas of Mumbai and Thane. It's been declared as the Thane Creek Flamingo Sanctuary. All right, next up is our News in Brief segment. Take a look at what else is making news about G20 and India.
Mentioning the key priorities of India's G20 presidency, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has said that inclusive, resilient growth is the focus of India's G20 priorities. He also added that India's G20 presidency has the largest ever representation from Africa with 6 participants. India has allocated 990 crore rupees for the G20 presidency in the 2023-24 budget presented on Wednesday, while retaining an outlay of 100 crore rupees for Iran's Chabahar port, signalling the importance of the facility in regional connectivity efforts. Russia backs India's bid for permanent UNSC seat and underlines G20 presidency's significance as per a statement by the Russian envoy that was made at the Indian Council of World Affairs Russian Council Dialogue. Directorate of Tourism Jammu, in collaboration with Divisional Administration, on Tuesday organized a bike rally from Kalakendra Jammu to Akhnur via Katra, Riyasi and Bhamla as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and with the aim of spreading awareness about G20 Summit, which being soon organized in UT of JNK. As many as 100 bikers took part in the rally to spread awareness among residents about India's G20 presidency and to promote tourist destinations of Jammu region as adventure hotspots. India's push for climate finance in Eco Survey reflects its stance as G20 president. As the host of the G20 presidency, India makes a strong case for green finance for developing countries through its economic survey tabled in the Parliament on January 31st. It says developing nations are caught between development priorities and fighting against climate change.
And now to the Did You Know segment. Did you know that the Run of Kutch is one of the largest salt deserts in the world? Now the word Run means desert and Kutch is the name of the district in the western Indian state of Gujarat. The Run of Kutch has desert on one side and the sea on the other. It was inhabited by the Indus Valley civilization as well as the Maurya and Gupta empires of India. The Indus or Harappan civilization is the earliest known urban culture of the Indian subcontinent. It dates back 4,000 years before the Common Era. Now, this might interest you. A festival called Ran Utsav is held every year between November and February in the Run of Kutch. And just so you know, you can still make it to the festival. It's on till 20th February. Now, while we are talking about Gujarat, did you know that Lothal in Gujarat has the world's earliest known dockyard? It's a remarkable feat for its time. It's located about 80 kilometers from Ahmedabad.
The advanced ancient Acropolis. Certainly, a gem of Indus Valley civilization attracted the ancient cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Due to its cherished people and culture, the city of art, architecture, masterpiece, craftsmanship, stones and gems, and above all, wonderful engineering techniques. These walls share the stories of Lothal's brilliance and the beginnings of supreme civilization, inspired other ancient cities of the world. This site has been nominated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You can see the artifacts recovered from the excavation in the Archaeological Museum of Lothal, 65 kilometers off Ahmedabad city. Lothal, rising, the ancient acropolis.
And did you know that the Atal Tunnel in India is the longest single tube highway tunnel at an altitude of 3,000 meters, that's about 10,000 feet. Now the 9.02 kilometer long tunnel is located in the northern Indian state of Himachal Pradesh. It was inaugurated on 3rd October 2020. The Atal Tunnel, also known as Rohtang Tunnel, is named after the late Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. It has been built under the Rohtang Pass in the eastern Pir Panjal range of the Himalayas. Alright, time now for our next segment, Country Profile, in which we select one country for you, either a G20 member or a country invited to the 2023 G20 Summit, and talk about that country's ties with India. India has invited the United Arab Emirates to the G20 Summit to be held in New Delhi in September this year. The UAE is one of 8 countries invited by India. Now, these 8 countries are not members of the G20, but they will be taking part in the summit as a special guest of India. Take a look at what makes India-UAE relations tick.
That bilateral relations were upgraded to comprehensive strategic partnership. PM Modi visited the UAE for the second time in 2018 for the World Government Summit in Dubai, where India was the guest of honor. He delivered the keynote address at the summit. The third visit by Prime Minister to the UAE was in 2019, during which he received the UAE's highest award, the Order of Zayed. Prime Minister Modi's 2019 visit witnessed the official launch of RuPay card in the UAE. A virtual summit took place between UAE President and India's Prime Minister in February of 2022. An India-UAE free trade agreement called Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement was signed on the occasion. It entered into force in May of 2022. The latest visit by Indian Prime Minister to the UAE took place in June 2022 when he stopped over in Abu Dhabi while returning from Germany after attending the G7 summit. India-UAE trade is worth $72.8 billion. UAE is India's third largest trading partner after China and the US. UAE is the second largest export destination for India after the US. UAE is the 9th biggest investor in India in terms of FDI. UAE sovereign wealth funds invested over $4.12 billion in India during 2020-21. The foundation stone for the first Hindu temple in Abu Dhabi was laid in April of 2019. Indian expatriate community of approximately 3.5 million is the largest ethnic community in the UAE. It constitutes about 35% of the country's population. Bureau Report, DD India.
I spoke to a former Indian ambassador to the UAE, Navdeep Suri, for his views on India-UAE ties, and this is what he had to say. Take a listen. With me is Ambassador Navdeep Suri, is a former Indian ambassador to the UAE. Ambassador Suri, welcome to this broadcast. How do you look at the evolution of India-UAE bilateral ties?
This is one relationship where I will not use the word evolution, I'll use the word transformation. And transformations in bilateral relationships are rare, because typically the evolution of ties that you mentioned is a fairly gradual, incremental process. But if you see what's happened with UAE in the short span of 7 or 8 years, I mean, if one were to take a particular point of time, I would say it was Prime Minister Modi's visit to Abu Dhabi in August of 2015, the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to that country in 34 long years, that really set the ball rolling. And what we have seen since then is a transformation in political ties from a country that we sometimes perceived as being pro-Pakistan, today as a very close strategic partner for India, a country that stood by us even on sensitive issues like the abrogation of Article 370. A country which is, many people don't realize, has become our third largest trading partner after the US and China. Our economic relationship today with the UAE is much larger than, say, with UK or Japan or Germany or France. A country whose sovereign funds, the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, the Mubadala, ADQ, and others are really at the forefront of investments into India. A country with which we have a very strong developing energy partnership. Our largest concentration of Indian nationals anywhere in the world is today in UAE, 3.4 million Indians, pretty much all of them Indian nationals. Our largest or second largest, depending on which data you look at, source of remittances, about $18 to $20 billion a year comes in by way of remittances from UAE. So it truly is a relationship that stands out for the way it has changed in the last 7 years. I would really call it a transformation.
Transformation indeed. On that note, Ambassador Suri, thank you for joining us on this broadcast. Thank you. Appreciate it. I also sat down with UAE's ambassador to India, Dr. Abdul Nasser Al Shali, for a conversation on UAE-India ties. Take a listen. Joining me is Ambassador Abdul Nasser Al Shali of the United Arab Emirates. Ambassador, welcome to this special broadcast. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. May I begin by asking you to give our viewers an overview of India-UAE ties as they obtain today?
So, as you would know already, the ties are as strong as ever, and this has been the working of a few years. We have had a few high-level visits. The Prime Minister have visited the UAE more than once. The then Crown Prince and now the President of the United Arab Emirates have visited India also more than once. We have also had visits at the level of the Foreign Minister. We have had visits at the level of different ministers, and all of this has basically trickled down into higher trade between the two countries and the signing of the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement and the establishment of new working groups and joint groups, and basically strengthening the other bilateral platforms as well as the future multilateral platforms that have been created as part of this relationship and the wider network that the two countries enjoy.
And talking about specific sectors to begin with, Ambassador, how do you look at the current state of play in bilateral ties when we talk about energy security or maritime security or even defense and security, counter-terrorism, and of course people-to-people ties?
I'll start with the people-to-people ties, and this has already been one of the strong points of the relationship, and this continues to go over time. So you would see more people moving between the two countries. There are more Indians going to study in the UAE, getting their medical treatment in the UAE. You see also more tourists between the two countries, whether they are from India visiting the UAE, the different Emirates, and to my surprise, I've heard more than once of Indians visiting Emirates other than the main Emirates to visit, or at least the main Emirates that you would naturally hear about. And you would also see Emiratis visiting not only Mumbai, for example, but also the other cities and the other places in India. And this is how we want it to be. We want people from both nations to explore the different states, the different emirates, and to visit all cities. In terms of the other bilateral aspects of the relationship, as you know, we have signed the CEPA in a timely manner in 88 days, which is quite an achievement for both countries. This is our first CEPA to be signed, and it already says a lot about the trust that is there between both nations, whether it's at the leadership level or even at the government level. And so the fruits of the CEPA are already visible. It's already bearing its fruits in terms of increasing bilateral trade, non-oil and oil-based trade, and also in terms of investments going between the two countries. Now, in terms of the other aspects of the relationship, we have been exploring other venues. For instance, the UAE is a member of the Indian Ocean Association, and India is a member of the Indian Ocean Association. The matter of fact is India is now the vice chair, and the UAE is the past chair, and so we continue to collaborate not only bilaterally but also in different multilateral platforms.
Ambassador, I know that you have more than an abiding interest in all things economic. You have a PhD in economics. You've held similar portfolios in the past. In that context, since you referred to the CEPA, the India-UAE FTA, how is that coming along, and what's been the general reaction, response from the industry in both countries to the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement?
Well, what we have seen over time is that there's a growing awareness of what CEPA entails and what CEPA can provide. And so you can see that more businesses are now using that CEPA towards their benefit in terms of increasing their exports both ways. For us in the UAE, we are supporting Made in India fully, and we want to be part of that value chain in terms of products moving from India to the UAE being processed partially in the UAE and then from the UAE going elsewhere. And this is also why there is now a serious discussion on launching a Made in India market or a Made in India traders market. We still haven't settled on a name to be in Dubai, close to the Expo area, and which will be a launching port for all India products from the UAE elsewhere.
2023 is the year when India holds the presidency of the G20, and India has invited the UAE to the September summit here in New Delhi. How do you look at the India-UAE collaboration or talks going forward within the G20 format? Because G20, we are told, is the premier economic body comprising the world's 20 top economies of the world. So they sure can play a role going forward in addressing the crises that are confronting the world today.
So this is the second year in a row that we get invited as a guest country, and of course we are privileged and honored that India has invited us as a guest country, and we see our role as a bridging role. So we come with a fresh perspective. We are a country that is driven by its goals and its strategic initiatives. We are ambitious, and we want to make sure that everything that we stand for is in support of the Indian presidency of the G20, which the Indian government have done a superb job in managing and conducting thus far.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you called on the Indian Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar just a few days ago. How did that meeting go, and can we expect any more visits, say, between the UAE and India before or between now and September when the G20 summit takes place?
Absolutely. We have a minister visiting almost every month. I have a minister coming twice this month to India. I've had my foreign minister here a couple of months ago. I've had my minister for international cooperation also visiting a few months back. So this will continue to happen, and you will see more ministers coming from the different government ministries in the UAE into India, and to visit not only the Delhi but also to go to visit different cities and different states. In terms of my meeting with the Minister for External Affairs, the meeting was excellent. We obviously discussed bilateral and multilateral topics, and the discussion usually centers around, okay, we are doing great, but we want to keep doing better. And we want to keep doing more. So how can we do that? And what are the new ideas, thoughts, things that we can explore together so that we keep this momentum not only at a stable rate, but to keep it growing as well.
Ambassador, India and the UAE are also collaborating in third countries, and I'm talking here of the regional context. For instance, we have the I2U2 with the US and Israel. How is that coming along, and what can we expect from the I2U2 in particular going forward?
Well, the I2U2 is important both to India and the UAE specifically, and also to the other two countries who are part of it. And to us, it's a very important economic platform to make sure that we can collaborate and cooperate in the different projects that we can do together. Obviously, because of the nature of the strong bilateral relationship between the UAE and India, we are also very active in that domain and in making sure that we can always come up with ideas and projects that we can work on with the other two countries, and also by utilizing the relations that we have with those other two countries.
And finally, Ambassador, you've been in India now for a few months. I'm sure you would have got to know a bit about the country and its culture and cities. What are your priorities for the next couple of years while you are heading the mission here in New Delhi? And what might be your wish list, so to speak, that you want to see yourself accomplish by the time you vacate this position in Delhi?
So my immediate goals are to make sure that we have the IIT Abu Dhabi established as soon as possible. Also to have a UAE-India CEPA Council, which is not only going to benefit your normal players in business and trade, but also your small and medium enterprises. And also my immediate priority is to be able to run a longer distance in the Mumbai Marathon next year. After that and beyond that, I just want to make sure that what we achieve in this relationship is far beyond what anyone can possibly envision. Yes, it is easy to say that we want to achieve this bilateral trade figure, non-oil or oil trade. We want to achieve this amount of investments in terms of infrastructure, energy security, food corridor, so on and so forth in both countries. But what we want to do is to, again, achieve above and beyond what anyone can possibly envision or think is possible in this relationship. We want to just make sure that we always beat expectations.
If I may ask a quick question here, how do you look at the impact of the Ukraine-Russia conflict on the UAE, for instance, in terms of energy supplies or even critical supply chains, generally speaking?
Well, you could see the impact both in terms of food security and energy security. Food security is quite important for us in the UAE, and energy security is also vital for India. And our role as strong partners and strategic partners is to support one another, whether it's food security in the UAE or energy security in India. And this is what we are doing today, and this is what we will continue to do in the future.
On that one, Ambassador Al-Shari, thank you so much for speaking to our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, let me now tell you a bit about how foreign media is covering India and the G20. My colleague Antara Sinha gets you the latest.
In the run-up to the G20 summit to be held in September 2023, as many as 200 meetings of the G20 member states, invitees and organizations across over 50 cities in India are being held. Namaskar and welcome to another edition where we cover foreign media coverage of India and its G20 presidency. First up, we have an article from a Russia-based portal, TV Bricks. It states that India to host more than 200 meetings under its G20 presidency. It also quotes Indian Minister for Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Narendra Singh Tomar, who stressed on the importance of G20 meetings in India and said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi insisted that the representatives from around the world who will come to G20 events should see the real India. They should see the villages, the machinery used here, the infrastructure and the academic institutions. Moving on, we have another one from Times of Oman. The article here is about the first employment working group meeting in Jodhpur, with a picture of the grand welcome that was given to the delegates there. The article further reads, the discussion in the EWG meet was on exploring strategies for global skills and qualifications, harmonization, and developing a framework for common skill taxonomies. Further, it reads, the panelists share insights and ideas on the priority areas addressing global skill gaps, which was chosen by the Indian presidency for the employment working group. With India predicted to be the pharmacy of the world by 2030. The next article we have is from ReliefWeb, which is a New York-based humanitarian information portal. Now it has an article which tells us that Gavi and Government of India established new partnership to protect millions of children by 2026. Gavi, which is the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, will provide $250 million in funding to reach zero-dose children, those who have not received a single routine vaccine shot, through a renewed strategic partnership with the Government of India. And further says, Gavi will feature this and other innovative solutions in upcoming G20 dialogues to help shape the digital health agenda. Next up, we have an article from the Arab News, which is titled as Indian Minister Predicts New Partnerships with Saudi Arabia on Climate Action. The article quotes Dr. Asif Saeed. There is great potential for partnerships between Saudi Arabia and India on climate action in the run-up to this year's G20 summit and beyond. Next up, we have an article from The Diplomat, a premier international current affairs magazine for the Asia-Pacific region. The article is titled as India's G20 Presidency, Decoding the Digital Technology Agenda. It further reads, India is making digital technology governance a centerpiece of its G20 presidency. It is a stark signpost of its aspirations as a global digital leader. At the Bali summit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi described the rollout of digital public infrastructure as the most remarkable change of our era. New Delhi's preparations for bringing its human-centric approach to technology to the grand diplomatic stage are in full swing. Well, we see how India is marching on and creating ripples in the media abroad as well. That's all from my side. See you next week. Over to you.
All right, it's quiz time now. I've got a question for you. What I want to ask you is this. Where was the first G20 summit held? Was it USA, UK, Canada or France? I repeat, where was the first G20 summit held? Was it the USA, UK, Canada and France? Think. I'll give you the correct answer later on the show. Right, next up is our social media segment. The G20 meetings are garnering attention on social media too. My colleague Tripti Tripathi gets you all the social media buzz. Take a look.
From a walk down the historic Jodhpur city to the majestic Kaziranga National Park in Assam, G20 delegates are truly getting a glimpse of the incredible India. A little bit of fun adventure on the sidelines of hectic Parle is giving the delegates time to understand the cultural diversity that is India. Welcome to another segment of Social Media Buzz, and we put forth some of the stories which went viral in the virtual world. G20 is surely unlocking the India's tourism potential. Take a look at how G20 delegates were given a tour of the famed UNESCO World Heritage Site at Kaziranga National Park as they learn about the diverse flora and fauna of India and the cultural diversity of the country. It was truly a remarkable moment for them. The rich cultural heritage and lifestyle of the various tribes and communities of Assam were in full display in this ethnic village at Sandaban Islands in Guwahati. And the delegates were quite at awe to witness the spectacular performances, taking videos and pictures with them. From Assam, the focus now shifts to the charming city of Chandigarh. As the first International Financial Architecture Working Group meeting of G20 India concluded in Chandigarh, the delegates were given a tour of the famous rock garden and Sukna Lake. The G20 delegates were also given a rousing reception. Delegates got a chance to shake their leg on traditional dance of the region. From Chandigarh, the attention now shifts to Mahabalipuram, where the Education Working Group was taking place. The G20 delegates visited the spectacular UNESCO World Heritage Site, shore temples and 5 chariots at Mahabalipuram, and they were spellbound with India's rich heritage. Delegates of G20 countries attending the first Employment Working Group meeting enjoyed Rajasthani cultural performances at the iconic Umaid Bhawan Palace in Jodhpur. They also took a cultural walk of the historic city. This truly was an incredible moment, not just for the delegates but also for netizens, who were equally thrilled. G20 India delegates stretching themselves over a yoga session during their meeting. Delegates got a chance to stretch in a short break. Well, that's all from this edition of Social Media Buzz. Hope you like it. For more updates on G20, follow our social media handles. Until we meet again, Namaskar.
Alright, time now for our next segment, India in Numbers. Now, India presented its annual budget on 1st February. So let me unpack some numbers for you. The GDP forecast for 2024 is in the range of 6 to 6.8%. The gross value added by industrial sector for the first half of 22-23 rose 3.7%. It's higher than the average growth of 2.8% achieved in the first half of the last decade. India has become the second largest mobile phone manufacturer globally. Production of handsets goes up from 60 million units in 2015 to 290 million units in 2021. The foreign direct investment flows into the pharma industry has risen 4 times, from $180 million in 2019 to $699 million in 2022. The service sector is expected to grow at 9.1% in 23 as against 8.4% year-on-year in 2022. India has the 6th largest foreign exchange reserves in the entire world as of November 2022. Now, the national and provincial government's budgeted expenditure on health sector touched 2.1% of GDP in 23 and 2.2% in 2022 against 1.6% in 2021. And last but not the least, India achieved its target of 40% installed electricity capacity from non-fossil fuels ahead of the target of 2030. So that was India in Numbers for you. Time to go back to the quiz I asked you at the top of the show. I'd asked you, where was the first G20 summit held? A, USA, B, UK, C, Canada, or D, France? The correct answer is A, the US. It was held in the year 2008 in Washington, D.C. And finally, take a look at the G20 meetings to be held next week. The first Tourism Working Group meeting will take place in the Run of Kutch from 7th to 9th February. And the first Environment and Climate Working Group meeting will be held in Bengaluru from the 9th to the 12th February. Now, if you haven't been to Bengaluru, then I will strongly recommend that you make time to visit the city. Here's why.
Bengaluru has become one of the most popular cities, not just in India, but in the world. Karnataka is paving the way forward to a melancholic tale of royalty with the Golden Chariot. A luxury train that indulges you with the best of Karnataka. From heritage festivals such as Dasera and the Mahamastakabhisheka that draw pious pilgrims from all around to the latest music festivals that gather revelers everything from ancient culture to modern marvels. There is one thread that holds everything together, from the Western Ghats to the Western coastline, from cultures that have stood for centuries to modern cosmocultures, from bustling metropolises to pristine nature, from a thriving economy to heartfelt hospitality. Whatever you seek, whatever your interests, there is something for everyone in Karnataka. Some of the most powerful empires of ancient and medieval India thrived on this very soil.
And with that, it's a wrap, but news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. I'll see you same time next week with another edition of India Calling. We leave you with these visuals from Guwahati. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.